Mindy.
Mute, Mindy.
Yeah, hey, all right, good. I'm not used to having to click the arrow for another screen worth of faces.
I said hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Mindy.
Hi, Mindy.
Oh, Mindy.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to start. Most people know Michael Cantwell, president of this club, Democratic Club of Delray Beach, editor of the Delray Democrat. I think we're all looking forward to hearing from Dr. Mindy Koch, telling us how we turned Florida blue in 2022. First, of course, it's Veterans Day, and I'd like to begin by thanking our veterans for their service and acknowledging this is the first Veterans Day in 20 years without a war underway, thanks to President Biden. I'd also like to give a special shout out to our club parliamentarian, Rob Resnick, who was a colonel in the JAG and did a couple of turns in Iraq before he retired several years ago. Rob also writes regularly for the Delray Democrat, and we're lucky to have him. If you haven't read his articles, you should be reading them. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge other club presidents, zone leaders, candidates for local office who are here. And let's begin with our chair, Terry Rizzo, chair of the Palm Beach County Democratic Executive Council. Hey, Terry, thanks for coming.
Delighted to be here. Thank you. And happy Veterans Day to everybody. Thank you.
So candidates, we have Rick King and Hassan Zahangir. Rick, why don't you say hi, and then Hassan?
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight, and also a happy Veterans Day.
Okay. And Rick is running in District 88 for Omari Hardy's vacant seat. Hassan?
Yep. Hello, everyone. How are you? Happy Veterans Day. Michael, thank you for having me. And that's it. And I'm a candidate for the, hold on one more thing. I'm a candidate for the State House District 90. Thank you.
Right. Okay. And then we have Risa. Risa's both a zone leader, club president, caucus president too, right?
Yeah. Busy. Did you want me to say something?
Sure. Just say which club's caucuses.
Oh, okay. Zone 1 leader, and I'm the president of the North County Democratic Club. And I'm also the chair of the newly formed Senior Caucus. And if you're interested, please contact me. We're moving along. Can I put a plug in for my next meeting, Mike?
Sure.
Oh, our next meeting, we're having Susan Butcher, and she's going to talk about the voting crime office he's created, amongst other things. So it's on December 1st. Mark your calendars. Thank you.
Okay. Is Joan on? I don't. With two screens, I don't see her. Joan Katz? Okay, she'll probably join us a little later. Okay, so moving to our guest speaker, probably everyone here knows Mindy, but I'll give a little bio. She's the vice chair of the DEC. She served our party for over 20 years in a variety of capacities, from phone banking through canvassing, through registering voters. She's a formidable fundraiser and leader. Before her election as vice chair, she was chair of the DEC Legislative Committee and president of the Democratic Club of Boca Raton and Delray Beach. When the club was formed 15 years ago, every seat on the Boca City Council was held by a Republican. Today, Boca is represented almost exclusively by Democrats. Mindy has a strong background in education and organizing. She holds a PhD and has worked as a teacher and union representative for over 40 years. Now she's going to tell us how to win. You may not have seen it, but I recently wrote an article on how to lose, drawing from the Florida elections I've witnessed over the 7 years I've lived here. What it boils down to is we lose because we don't, as the slogan goes, vote blue no matter who. We form circular firing squads, we engage in purity tests, and we fail to unite behind the candidate that emerges from the primary. Or as Mindy reminded me recently, we tell people we're going to hold our nose and vote for her and him, not a winning message.
Don't give it all away.
No, this is what not eliminating these counterproductive behaviors is a necessary but not a sufficient condition to defeating DeSantis and Rubio. I'd like to turn it over to Mindy now to tell us what we should be doing, not just what we shouldn't be doing.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to hit mute all. So maybe you're going to have to unmute yourself. Michael.
All
will
right, I'll
also
do my
that.
best.
Yeah.
It's always something I don't do well.
Okay.
I did it. Go me. It always shocks me when I can use technology. My students used to come up to me with their computers open, with the circle going around and around and around. Dr. Koch, how do I fix this? And I say, wait, you were born with one of these in your mouth and you're asking me how to fix this? We're in very serious trouble. Here's how you fix it. Turn it off and turn it back on. But I didn't save my stuff. I said, right, a lesson learned. So there you go. It accomplished a lot of tasks that way. And you know what? When you turn it off and turn it back on, it somehow works. So thank you, Michael, for inviting me. Thanks, everybody in the Delray Club for coming tonight. It's fun to be here. Of course, those of us in South County who are lucky enough to live down here in South County live in mostly hard Democratic areas. And so this is more of a kind of thinking about how we do this countywide. So before I start, let me just tell you what I think we should be talking about. Terry and I went to the legislative delegation public meeting, open session that was prior to the opening session, which begins on January 11th. Terry spoke about voting rights and I spoke about women's health care and abortion. Our comments seemed to be well received by our delegation, although I must say with the large Republican population in our legislature, we're not expecting too many great things out of this session, but you know, there's always hope. Recently, in this week, Senator Scott came and visited Palm Beach County and he was at the port. And what he did there was tout the wonderful infrastructure bill that was passed in DC. I know you were all laughing. He, of course, voted no, so did our other senator, so did all but 4 of our House reps. So he bragged about it unmercifully, although the party of no did not disappoint, and all but 13 of them, once again, voted no. But they're going to tout it as something that they did. We need to do the absolutely same thing. We should learn our lesson extremely well from the Democrats, from the Republicans who have taught us that this is the way you win. I have a couple of suggestions for you. I'm a grassroots activist. And when we address the fabulous infrastructure bill, we need to keep repeating who voted for it, who actually made it happen. Every time you post on Twitter, every time you write on Facebook, don't forget to start or end with this tweet post was brought to you by the Democratic Party who voted yes on the infrastructure bill, or something equally as pithy. Also today, I heard that the governor may not take the money, you know, like he didn't take the Medicaid money. I think that's false. However, it's been in the press, so feel free to say that. And here are the salient points about the amount of money will be coming to Florida. $13 billion for roads, $245 million for bridges, $2.6 billion for public transportation, $190 million for electric vehicle charging. We have $1.6 billion for clean water, $1.2 billion for airport repairs and resurfacing and regeneration, and $100 million, probably in my opinion as a teacher, for the most important part, broadband. The pandemic brought home how desperately awful it is to be in a neighborhood where there is no broadband, or in a home where your parents have no Wi-Fi. So I encourage you to talk this up at every opportunity we have, because the Democrats voted yes. We voted yes. And we truly made, thank goodness, Infrastructure Week become a reality for everyone. Now we're going to work on the Build Back Better bill, which probably, in spite of Florida, every state will be forced to take the Medicaid expansion, and that's really important as well. Now, how to get the vote out. So here's what you have to do. When your precinct, my precinct, gets out 81% of its vote. We do that by walking and knocking and walking and knocking, and then we call a little bit. And 80% of the vote is practically full participation. Everybody else has usually moved or died or whatever has happened that caused them, or been ill and in the hospital, that they weren't able to be at the election day. So what I would recommend that you think about doing, if you get that kind of turnout in your precinct, which I know happens a lot in Delray because you're really blue, is you might want to think about taking over an underperforming precinct, where it will be a little more difficult because, you know, you can't say, hi, I'm your neighbor, but you really can, because we all live in Palm Beach County and you're, hi, I'm your neighbor. But we have a lot of underperforming precincts. And just think, in the last gubernatorial election, we lost that election by 34,000 votes. That's, we could get that in Palm Beach County very easily. We all have to be really pragmatic about this, really pragmatic. When our candidate is selected, just like Michael said, we have to say, that's our candidate, we love him, her. And really get behind them, because besides, you know, the Weiner piece that happened in New York 2 days before the 16 election, we had so many people here in Palm Beach County that I would meet, and exactly what Michael said, I'm gonna hold my nose and vote for her. You can't do that. We can't do that. We have to be full-throated behind our candidates. We have to. They count on us. They want us to do this and help them. We also need people who are willing to make phone calls, really serious phone calls into the districts. My district has, my precinct has 100 new members. So, and it's not 100 households, it's 100 people. It's about 75 households. So it's not a lot of phone calls to make. And because I live in a precinct that has over 1,000 Democrats, I share the precinct with Sue Ellen Weiner. And so we're gonna split that and make those phone calls. Now, let me tell you what we did at the Boca del Rey Democratic Club that may or may not help you, okay? If you cannot call on the phone, and you've tried and tried and tried, And you knock on their door and you can't find them there either. We had our lovely printer, Print America, he'll drop it off at your house, by the way, do 5,000 door hangers for us. This is, we are your club. This is what we do. This is my name. Please call me if you need help. And we notice you haven't registered. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
If you need help registering to vote, and it's been very, very, very successful. We did 5,000 of them in 16, and we did 5,000 of them in 18, and we still have probably 3,000 left. So that's what we use. We take our logo, we put it on a half a sheet. He does 2 on 1. He cuts the hole in it. You just show up, knock on the door, hang the hanger, and go. And it's been really very effective. And my neighborhood is a big circle. So it's 250 houses that are a big circle. So it's really easy to get to them all. And this is a gated, guarded neighborhood, but I have a pass that lets me get into all of these neighborhoods, all of them in Boca Lago. So that's one suggestion I have for you. Our club, that's why we raise the money. That's one of the things we do with the money. And because it's considered, just so you know, you're only allowed to spend $500 for political purposes, but bringing out the vote, bringing out registering voters and making sure people are registered to vote and get out the vote kind of things is not a political activity. So you can spend whatever money you want to on it. Ours, the 5,000 cost us, I want to say about $1,200. And they were very, very, very effective and pretty well received. I got lots of phone calls, which surprised me to death. I loved it. And it was nice to talk to my neighbors who didn't want to talk to me on the phone when I called because they didn't know my number. So that's one thing we did. And if you want help, I'll be more than happy to help you design one or hook you up with somebody who can help you design one, because actually I didn't design it at all. It was designed by Linda Rosenthal and my daughter. They were the team that designed it. So I can hook you up and help you do that. It's really important that, because now's the time to reach out to the voters. Now, you all know that in another 4 months, you have 5 months, maybe March, you have a municipal election, right? You know that. Everybody knows that, right? And you have some of your city council seats are going to be up for election. 2 of them, I think. And that's in the very beginning of March. So you need to make sure all your people are registered to vote and have their vote by mails if they want one, and all those kinds of things. The other thing is, when you get POM cards from the county, you might want to identify your own candidates that are on the POM card that live in Delray. Because people sometimes get confused when they see the POM cards or slate cards with all kinds of different names on, names that they don't recognize that confuse them. So you might want to take those cards, and before you hand them out at the polls, you might want to make sure that your candidates have circles around them. If you have 2 Democrats, put circles around them in Delray who are running for office, so that somebody doesn't say, well, where is, she's not on my ballot, or he's not on my ballot. So we don't want to confuse voters any more than they're already confused. And it's quite a thing to watch people vote. It's quite a thing. Second of all, during early voting, somebody in your club needs to take hold of the early voting activities in Delray, so that you make sure that your early voting place is covered for the 14 days of early voting. That's during, August and November. The 14 days of early voting from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. It is a long time. And we get all kinds of volunteers. You have to have, we do it in 2-hour blocks, which is the most successful. all of Boca Raton, from Highland Beach, from the ocean to the Everglades, is absolutely covered. And we wave signs, and we don't really have flags that say Biden, but you could. We do have 2 tents that we put up in West Boca, and 1 tent that we put up in East Boca at the library. And it's really very helpful because then people don't have to stand in the beating sun during August when it's so hot. And we make sure that those poles are covered. And once again, the Boca del Rey Democratic Club provided those tents for all of the early voting places. We also provide tables and chairs and whatever, and personnel, like I used to go all the time and make sure it was covered. And in the last election, I just have to say, if you did stand at the polls during the last election, you know how difficult it was, because the Trump people were mind-bogglingly rude and outrageous and said terrible things. And I just smiled and waved. Thanks so much. Nice to see you too. There's nothing you can do. So you just kind of sit, twiddle your thumbs, hope. And you also have to encourage your candidates to come sit with you every once in a while. Because the Republican candidates were all at the early voting place in Boca at some points during the day, every day. I only know this because I was at the early voting poll a lot. But if we tell people how to vote, and we call people and make sure they are registered voters, and if they want to vote by mail, they can get one, and we can help them do that. This is how we get 80% out in my precinct. It's not because we work magic. It's not because we don't work magic. We just use the old tried and true strategies to get our voters out. It's really not, it's hard. I'm not saying it's not hard. It's rote. If you want a script, I'll write one and send it to you. I'll do whatever you need to help us get the vote out, because Palm Beach County has 34,000 Dems that didn't vote in the 16 election, in the 18 election. We could save the state right here in Palm Beach County. We could. And if you would consider, because I do 5170, that's where I live. And I adopted 5166, which is the other end of the street. And then a little bit south of me is 5172. And my colleague, who also, Sue Ellen Weiner, she takes 5168, which is across the street, the other way. And so we cover between us 5 precincts, because those are uncovered precincts and we can't find anybody to work them. The zone leaders can't find, nobody can. So we just work them. And a good mining place for you is if you want to, you all know, I know you know what hot voters are, right? So if you look at the hot voters, that's a great place, when you talk to them on the phone and say, listen, are you interested in volunteering? Would you make some phone calls? My mother, who was in a wheelchair and couldn't do much, used to make 100 calls a day for Sue Ellen and Mark Weiner before I lived here. So everybody can do something. It doesn't have to be 100 calls a day. That took a couple of hours, but she had nothing else to do. But you can divide it into 25s, do whatever they're willing to do. Say yes, absolutely, yes, we can. Would you like to walk with us? Would you like to call with us? Would you like to sit at the polls with us? People will come. It will be amazing. And that's how you really have to do the work. And the time to do the setup work is from now until March. And because this is in Congressional District 20, you don't have a race in January. You do have a race for 88 in January. That's a primary, isn't that right, Mr. King? See, I know my politics. I don't know much, but I know that part. And so you do have a primary in January. I believe it's January the 11th. And so don't forget to vote, because you all have 88 is part of you is 88. So that's all I can tell you. Write down my phone number. Everybody have your piece of paper. I'll put it in the chat too, maybe, if I can figure out how to do it. It's 561-901-5554. And I answer everybody's phone calls. And this is how I answer. Hi, this is Mindy. So you'll know you got the right person.
Mindy, I put it in the chat for you.
Oh, I did it too.
Oh, you did? Okay, then, okay,
It's
there.
there
Yeah,
twice.
got it. All right.
561-901-5554. And I'm Mindy K 52@gmail.com. I'll help you. I'll come sit with you. I'll hold your hand while you make those first 10 phone calls. But we have to do this. We have to do this.
Mhm.
We need our high performing precincts, which is you guys, to help us do this. We can't
Yeah.
do it without you. We absolutely can't do it without you. So if you have any questions, I'll be.
Yeah, I was going to open the floor for questions, or you can put them in the chat. I have one question, and Carrie can weigh in on this as well. I was talking to our zone leader today, Phil Cerruti. He couldn't be here tonight because right now, between my wife, my cousin Dave up in the corner, and the vice president of our club, Charlene, we handle two precincts. The one we live in, which actually had an 84% turnout, but we're right here. And across street from us is mostly Haitian and African American precinct, large precinct. And after years of being in the low 70s, after Shar got involved, she's an unbelievable organizer. We went over there. She walks over there in the morning. We give out the Delray Democrat there. I call them Shar's elves. She's got about a dozen people in our community that do phone banking. And we had a 75% turnout there in the last election. And that actually, I think, understates it because the records are so bad there. It's a community where there are a lot of recent immigrants, and there's houses with a lot of people, and then they move somewhere and the van doesn't keep up with it. So some of the people that didn't vote because they couldn't. But my question is, I had said to Phil, I was going to make a pitch tonight, and I will do it to everyone here living in Delray Beach, to think about becoming, a precinct leader. If you don't live in the precinct, though, then you have to be what's called at large. Is that not true, Terry? Okay. So anybody that wants to can now, whether they live there or not, they can give me their names. They can tell me, I can give it to Phil, and we can match them up with a precinct.
If I may, I'll weigh in briefly on this.
Yeah.
It's only for voting purposes on the DEC. So people that's all it is. People can be precinct leaders. In other words, they're non-seated precinct leaders, but there are lots of them in the county. There are many precincts around the county that are covered by people who don't live in their precinct, or who are assisting and helping, and are not necessarily either. Some of them don't want to be on the DEC, and others can't because there's not a spot open for them right now.
I
But anybody can cover a precinct, and we'd be delighted to have somebody do it.
That's great. Okay, well, we're really going to push for that. And
Yep.
I think, I mean, Char and I have been talking about, taking on some other precincts. I think about half of the precincts in Zone 8 are not covered. And it's an existential election. But let me open the floor for questions, comments. I can't believe no one has.
Seriously, oh my gosh, you guys.
I'm Steve, are you waving your hand there?
I am.
Please,
I am waving my
Please,
hand.
I knew we would hear from you, and so.
Of course you're going to hear from me. You know,
Yeah.
you always hear from me, don't you?
Yeah.
I want to say hi to my old friends. I haven't seen you in a while. And
Yeah.
I also want to say hi, Mindy. It's good to see you again. I enjoyed listening to all of the talk about organization and registering voters. And I agree that all of that is very, very important, but it is not all there is to winning campaigns. As some of you may know, I've made a good deal of my living over the past 4 decades doing political communications. I've been involved in about 200 campaigns and won about 70% of them. So communications is what I want to talk about just briefly. And we need to reach out to the unenrolled, what are known as NPAs here in Florida. 26% of the voters in Florida are NPAs. They are neither Republican nor Democrat. 27% of the voters in Palm Beach County are NPAs. If we don't win a significant portion of those NPAs, if we don't convince them to vote Democratic, we don't get a majority, because neither party has a majority in Florida. Each party is about 35 to 40% in Florida. So we've got to win the NPAs. We need to reach out to them. We need to tell them how good the Biden administration is doing for them, how good it's going to be for Florida when the Democrats take over. These are the people we need to convince. And I, for one, am eager and ready to volunteer to do as much work in the communications area as I possibly can, including those of you who may be running for office. I'll be happy to help you out with your communications effort. The last 3 campaigns I did with top of the ballot wins in Massachusetts. So I'm pretty proud of that. And I'd be happy to help and work with everybody. Thank you for listening.
Well, might I say, Michael, that I guess the data people in the FTB have decided that exact same thing, Steve, and we now can pull Democrat-leaning NPAs.
Mhm.
People we want. We really don't want to talk to the crazy lunatic fringe. We want to talk to Democrat-leaning NPAs, and we do have a way to pull those lists. If you have a precinct and you want to know what that is, I'll be more than happy to send you to the person who can truly help you.
I will be happy. I will be happy to work with the state level or at the county level to reach as many as possible. This is what I do for a living, and I'll be happy to contribute to the party.
Perfect. I'll be happy to call you.
Thank you.
No problem.
June, and then Judy.
Okay.
June, you need to unmute June. And then Judy next. June,
Yes, sir. Ready?
you ready?
Okay. All of you, thank you. And Mindy, thank you so much, because I've been so depressed for the past weeks. I need someone like you. We need a cheerleader. One of the things I want to share is that so many people that I've talked to, including quite a few Democrats, are disillusioned with the president and blame him for things that he's simply not responsible for. Okay, that's a human reaction, but you can't stand there and argue all the points. That's just not how these things need. But I think it might be a good idea to have a bullet list of some talking points that we can agree on and share basics, nothing too complex. So we know how to respond to these accusations, and that world, as you well know, they live in fantasy land. Now, the NPAs that Steve brought up, I think that's the key. That's gold. We need, I don't know who's sane and who's not in the group, but I think it's critical to get to them and to have a list of talking points on perhaps 10 subjects, so that if it comes up, or even you have the opportunity, we're all in agreement on what to say, and it doesn't have to be long, a couple of sentences.
Right.
But many people just don't know what to say. They're taken aback, and we can't lose that opportunity. Thank you.
Well, I also have to say, because I guess we expected the world as well. I have to tell you, I play Mahjong, and the ladies I play Mahjong with say, that Kamala Harris, where has she been? I said, well, when was the last time you saw a vice president doing work in public? You'd never see a vice president doing work in public. That's number one. And number two, they say, do you see how she dresses? I said, I really don't care how she dresses. She bikini. But you understand, we have got to, and we don't need talking points for this. We have got to stay focused on the really, 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 truly important things. Joe Biden, everybody seems to, people in politics have really long memories. The rest of the population goes, well, whatever. We know, at least I know, from 20 years ago when Ronald Reagan, 30 years ago, when Ronald Reagan was president of the United States, it was ugly watching legislation being made. If you really watched it, nobody really saw it. I watched it in the 70s because I worked for my United States senator. I watched it. I wrote some of it. I researched it. I talked to people. It's a never-ending process. But Donald Trump didn't have to talk to anybody because he had the majority when he was ruling, and the only thing they passed was tax breaks for the wealthy. There was no legislation during the Trump administration. Obama, if you recall, had tremendous problems passing the ACA, how difficult that was, how long it took. And then their huge mistake that I hope we have learned the lesson from is that they never talked it up. And so it didn't become popular until the Republicans tried to repeal it. Then all of a sudden, nobody wanted to get rid of their Obamacare. Okay, so I hope the lesson we've learned is that 15 something billion dollars, billions of dollars are coming to Florida to help us put people to work in high-paying jobs, to improve all of our hard infrastructure until we get the next one passed, which is also going to pass. But it's perfectly okay for you to say, but I understand the governor isn't going to take that money, just like he didn't take the Medicaid money. What are they going to do? Call you a liar? Holy mackerel. They've never heard a liar before. I'm just telling you, these are the things. We have to be enormously pragmatic in this time and place. I'm telling you, every time you tweet something, every time you're on Instagram, if you do Facebook, whatever it is you do, make sure the very first thing or the very last thing is it's infrastructure week and the Dems passed the infrastructure bill. Because really, at the end of the day, we need to create the excitement. I think that Washington is counting on all of us to create this excitement. I was overjoyed on Friday night when it passed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Absolutely.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I also have to say, everybody talked about these terrible losses the Democrats had in the off-year elections for governor. Well, here's the thing. I'm really a half the glass full person. I'm really an optimist, even in this political climate. And here's what I think. We used to lose too. If the president was a Democrat and the two governors were Democrats, they lost. This time we only lost one. We're doing 50% better, you guys. You got to take the win where you get it. When somebody says, but Terry McAuliffe lost, or the governor of Virginia lost, or whatever it is they want to say, okay, but Murphy retained his seat in New Jersey. Okay, we have to turn this around. If we haven't learned anything from these people with their red state solution, and so we took away from them. They were smarter than us, though. Again, we took away from them vote by mail. We became the vote by mail party, and then they figured out how to stop us from voting by mail or make it harder. I'm just saying. And so we have to take a play out of their playbook. When Alabama plays football, believe me, because I'm a real Alabama fan, roll tide. Believe me when I tell you, all those coaches that Nick Saban has trained up who now have teams to play against him, all know what the playbook is that Nick Saban plays out of. I'm just telling you, if we don't use that playbook to our greatest advantage, we need our heads examined.
And I just want to thank you for that, because that's what I'm talking about. Our playbook.
Okay. June, I think.
You don't need it written. You just need to say,
oh, we do.
passed an infrastructure bill. And if you want me to add up all that money, which didn't include the port, it was just the biggest money. I'll be more than happy to add up all that money and tell you how much Florida's going to get. That's because we voted for it. There wasn't one Republican that voted for it. Not one. Don't let them take that. Don't let them take that from us.
Mindy,
And
you are
call them a
absolutely right.
liar if they try. Call them a liar and don't mince words. Terry?
Michael, I have just a quick note, Michael. Those people who are looking for talking points on today's edition of the website of our club page on Facebook, I posted several talking points that I received from my friends at the Mass Democratic Party. And they are all applicable to talking about the infrastructure and the Build Back Better bills. And I would invite you to pass them on to anybody you want to pass them on to, because that's what they're
I saw it, Steve, and people look for our Facebook group. Terry, you had your hand up. You want to say something?
Yeah, I did. And that's Mindy is absolutely 100% right on this. Everybody needs to be touting this right, left, and center, no matter what. You all should have received an email yesterday that talked about Democrats from the party, from the Palm Beach County Democratic Party, that says Democrats deliver infrastructure week. And the talking points about the infrastructure bill are in there. So many of those talking points are there. So if you want to, we'll send it to you again if you need it, but it's there. And those talking points came from the White House, the ones that are in there. Yeah.
Okay, Judy, where's Judy?
I'm here. Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, Mindy, you spoke about going to the early voting sites. Now, I've been doing it for years, except for 2020, because in 2020, well, there was the pandemic, but also what is it, 100 feet or 100 yards?
It's 150 feet now.
100, oh God. Well, even it was 150 then, and it used to be 50. 50 was wonderful. We engaged with voters. We had conversations. The candidates were there, especially the judges, who people don't really know much about, and the judicial candidates used to come. This is at Hayden Ranch Library. But 100 feet was the back of the parking lot with no
Only if you go that way. If you go toward the other side where the parked cars are, that's 150 feet too. And it counts from that doorway that you come into.
We're talking about Hagen Ranch.
And goes back down that sidewalk where they're all waiting, and so they see you, and then you go another 50 or so feet into the parking lot. It's not where you think it is.
So you can go 100 feet that way, yeah.
Yeah, it's not 50 feet away from the front door that way. They do it on the side of the building where the line is.
You can go closer.
Yeah, well, they measure it off and we stand where they tell us to stand.
Oh, yes.
And believe me, I go out there with them and watch them with their measuring tape because I try to get to as many polls before they open as I possibly can.
Good.
Before I was the DEC vice chair. So, did I answer your question?
Angsoon.
Bob, and then Bong Soon, or Bong Soon and then Bob.
Soon. Mhm.
Okay, you talked about talking point, basically messaging, educating our own Democratic voters, reaching out NPA. Really, what you are missing right now is that in Palm Beach County, we have a large population of a Black community. You are not experiencing in your area. My zone 3W, I have more than 50,000 voters, over 55%, even more of them are Black voters. And the, what's her name, zone Northeast, what's her name? Suddenly I'm forgetting her name. Our state county woman, what's her name?
Maria Cole.
Maria Cole.
Maria. Her, yes, 99% Black voters. Their voting rate is under almost 70% turn, okay? 70% voter turnout. Mine, I have a lot of other races vote very well. All my Black communities, except rare occasion 1 or 2, they vote 65, 68, or whatever it is, okay? The point is that we are not embracing them. We're not educating them how to be a good Democrat. A lot of them need to be educated why they are voting, okay? And you talk about infrastructure, they wouldn't even understand, some of them, community people don't understand the language. Basically, what I'm not complaining to you, what I'm complaining about, our Black politicians are politicians, but they are not the leaders of their community. They have to become their leaders for community, listen to them, engage them, educate them, and get them excited at every voting season as we are. And the reason why I mentioned to you is that DAC executive leaders have a responsibility to reach out to them, have a dialogue. Who do you have a dialogue with? Politicians, and tell them directly they are not the leaders of their community. And I'm willing to say to them, and I don't want them to come to our meeting, how DEC people are not doing all that crazy talk. We are not embracing them. We're not embracing young people. They come to our DEC meeting. Somehow they became a precinct leader. How many times you tried to reach out? They're not there. They come only to vote for certain people, and voting DEC voting
I hear you,
season.
Bong Soon, and I have to tell you, I sat at the table on Thursday, Tuesday, Monday, my days kind of now meld into each other. I sat at a table with a man named Senator Bobby Powell, and he and I had a very interesting conversation just about that subject. So working on it.
Yeah, I think working on it is not good enough. And
well, you know, but
you,
I hear you, Bong Soon, I do.
Time is short. We have to move fast.
I hear you, Bong Soon.
2022. Forget about 24.
I hear you. I hear you. And who's next?
Bob.
Bob,
Hi. Hey, Mindy.
How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's good
Good,
to
nice
see
to see you in Florida.
Yes. for a change. Just one kind of housekeeping / technical response to Judy that I wanted to let her know about and remind, and hopefully this is still the case, but in 2020, Judy, this club being really very synonymous with the city, with the municipality of Delray Beach, we've finally, after years and years and years, got an early voting center within the city of Delray Beach, and that's the Delray Community Center.
mhm.
Which we did have a tent at, and where that tent was located was essentially right at the intersection of Northwest First Avenue and Northwest First Street, which is the northern entry to the community center, and allowed us to catch cars as they were coming in. So the 150 feet didn't really deter us from being able to engage the voters. So there'll be, great opportunity to do that again, and support the voting within the city of Delray. So I did want to let you know about that. Hopefully, it didn't have, admittedly, early voting turnout at the community center was kind of down. Hopefully Wendy is not being informed by that and eliminating that as an early voting center. I'd like to think that will still be in place for 22. So, we should be thinking about how to staff up at the, at the community center. I'd also like to, underscore, what Steve was talking about. And all too recently, like as early as yesterday, when the numbers came out about the current, 6.1% inflation, yada yada, like good little lemmings, you can look on the news programs and you can see Republican after Republican after Republican after the Republican literally looking down at a sheet of paper and reading the Republican response to those numbers. So they may be the parrot party, but where essentially they are just droning and repeating that same talking point verbatim over and over and over again. I would submit there's probably nothing wrong with us doing the same darn thing.
Yeah.
But we don't need, I don't think, have it written, because we have it written. They wrote it for us last Saturday night.
Well, oh no, and that, yes.
And on
absolutely.
Monday, he's going to sign it in public with all of those people. We did learn that lesson from Donald Trump. And I mean, it's going to be a big show on Monday when he signs the infrastructure bill. And all you have to do is say, yes, we are the party who brought you the infrastructure bill.
Yeah.
We got it passed. We bring the money. Your representatives said no. We are the only yeses in the state. Deutsch, Frankel, what's her name? Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
All the Democrats.
All the Democrats.
All the Democrats.
That's who
Every
brought you.
Democrat voted yes. Every Democrat voted
That's
yes.
who brought you.
Right. But the
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Mindy, and it's not so. I'm not questioning the authorship of the script, but fidelity to the script. I think.
Well, that's all we should be. I'm telling you, that comes out of my mouth so many times. I go, wait a minute, you're worried about what Kamala Harris wears? How about we just brought you $1.75 trillion worth of infrastructure?
Yeah, but
That's not sufficient because we're only fixing
so,
3,000,
wait a minute.
30,000.
So, right now,
The
people
talking
right now,
points, the talking points,
inflation. Yeah.
the talking points of Republicans are uniform, right? The problem with the talking points of Democrats, I read John Podesta quoted in the New York Times. I read Tim Kaine, who couldn't beat Mike Pence in a debate in 2016, talking about, how the Democrats are responsible for this loss in Virginia. That's not the right talking point. These people have to be lying. If a Republican did that, went off message like that, it would be the last time they did, because they would be told to stop it. And it really, it's not just that we don't have the talking points. It's that we have people who just, I don't know what's wrong with them. I mean, Podesta, I think he wants his name back in the paper now that he's not chief of staff anymore. And the New York Times reporters are happy to go and get people where they can stir it up a little bit.
Can I just say, we have the largest landmass county east of the Mississippi River. It's 62 miles from my house to the heart of Belglade. I am telling you, we have control over this part of our country, and over this part of our country, our message needs to be, we Democrats delivered you infrastructure. And when they talk about inflation and they talk, whatever it is they want to distract you with, you need to say, when you get a job repairing the Flagler Bridge, then you can talk to me about inflation, because your pay will be up to $25 an hour. I'm just, we can't, I'm not an economist, are you? I can't debate with somebody about inflation. I know where it's coming from. I understand it totally. It's not coming from the infrastructure bill. It's coming from our problems with the supply lines, okay? And there's nothing we can do about that, and we can't do anything about Mr. Podesta, and we can't do anything about anybody who's on TV. Every time I hear it, I just turn it off. If I turn it off enough, then they may change their tune. But at the end of the day, we have total control over what we're going to say until we're going to say it.
Steve West.
Steve and then Ellen, I think, have their hands up.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm a guest here, and I didn't plan on saying something, but I want to circle back to Bonsoon, who has opened a path for me to at least contribute for 1 minute. Most everybody on here knows about the in-crowd and the Building Bridges program. And the Building Bridges program, unfortunately, Bonsoon, I did not have your contact information, but I put mine on the list for you. And if you give me a call tonight or tomorrow, I'll go over it with you. Very briefly, the in-crowd is to build relationships in the underserved communities. We have a great platform. We have volunteer opportunities in every aspect of quality of life. So it's a supportive way to get people excited about getting to vote, because it's turning the Democratic platform into actual living organism, excuse me. And
Is good.
At least he's got his clothes on. Listen, it's all right.
I like the first one better.
Okay, so that's it briefly, but please, if anybody who doesn't know about us gets in contact with me, I'll be more than happy to explain it to you and include you in what we're doing.
Thanks, Steve. And because I really follow municipal politics, because I live in an unincorporated part of Palm Beach County, don't look for an election in Delray in March. There won't be one. So Ellen.
Hello. So I heard Michael Steele this week, as did probably some of you on the call. And just to go back to the couple comments that were made about how we shouldn't criticize past elections. I feel like what he said about the Virginia election bears repeating. He talked about how Youngkin was able to go 2 weeks or so with unfettered access to the press, laying out his narrative, even calling himself a small businessman. And so by the time the Democrats responded, the imprint of Young King was already made on all the people's minds from the previous narrative that was out there. So I think that we have to get our messaging out, and we have to combat the falsehoods by the other side in a swift manner. You know, as a teacher, we say consequences, and a parent, consequences are supposed to be, appropriate, swift. And I think the same thing goes for counteracting the narrative that the Republicans put out very well, unfortunately.
Yes, and he did say, this is how they did it. This is how they had 2 weeks of time. They did not have a primary in Virginia in the Republican Party. They had a state convention and nominated one candidate. The Democrats, on the other hand, had a primary, and it took them in that, I guess in that 2 weeks was when from the time their convention was until the Democrats picked in a primary their candidate. That was a 2-week window where the Republicans got to speak unfettered on the press, on the news, in the newspaper, on TV, on radio, on Facebook, on Twitter, everywhere. And so he got to define himself, and we just sat and twiddled our thumbs. We'd say a lot, humana, 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 and then it's way too late. That's right. You got that right. It's just, when we make the, donuts, it's not so attractive because we think everybody has a right to run, and we do that. But since the Republicans had such a clean process, it was so simple for them. He's in, he's it, that's all, see you later, bye-bye. Democrats were still fighting over who was going to be the candidate. And that therein lies our problem. And I just have a question for you all. Would you do me a favor, and you don't have to raise your hand with your raise your hand icon. I'm just wondering how many of you believe that this conversation about masks and vaccines in schools is really about masks and vaccines in schools? Would you, and people having their personal freedom, how many of you believe that that's what this is about?
No.
Oh, everybody's nodding their head no. Well, then we need to say that. This is about the destruction of the public school, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
The rise of vouchers and charters. That's what they're trying to do here, and cut these swaths among us. We used to be united. He also, Michael Stevens, back in the day when I worked in Washington, D.C., in the dark ages, in the 1970s, every single United States senator and congressman had a home with a wife and their children in Washington, D.C. And when they went to the same country club and played golf with these men and women, because they were friends, they didn't agree politically, but they were friends. And all their children went to the same schools. They said, are you having a problem with da, 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 da? And all of a sudden, they were no longer political enemies. They were parents working on behalf of their children. We no longer have that because it's an exodus don't try to leave out of National Airport in Washington, D.C. anymore on Thursday afternoon, because you can't get a flight to go anywhere. Everyone is leaving. So nobody stays there. They don't really know each other. And, we don't really know our Republican neighbors. My neighbor upstairs from me is a nice Republican lady. She's overjoyed that I'm vice chair of the Democratic Party. And then she starts a fight with me about vaccines. I said, sure, do me a favor. When you get COVID, stay over there. Thank you so much. And I try to do it light and funny and ha-ha, but I'm telling you, as far as this public school, and I also have to say, I don't know what the school board is going to do about this, but today in the Fifth Circuit, which is one of the most conservative circuits in the country, told Texas that they cannot ban mandates, mask mandates. They can't do it. That's what they said. I guess they'll go take that to the Supreme Court too, but may not work. I'm just saying that this is about how to rid ourselves of the public schools, not
Yeah.
about masks. They
David.
also, just so you know, they also get hours of unfettered time at our school board meetings and at our
Yeah.
commission meetings. This is what the public is hearing.
Yeah.
I'm here
I
for-
think
wanna-
David's,
Yeah,
Dave, you're next.
Yeah, I can't actually raise my hand because I'm the host, so I don't have the option to raise my hand electronically. I wanted to go back to what Mindy said about the primaries. They have staggered the primaries in Florida. So the Democrats will beat the crap out of each other in the primary and then have like a month to campaign for the general election. And we're
Correct.
going to do it again. And I
Correct.
don't know how to do what to do, except have Terry just pick who runs.
Well, then you can't do that either.
You know, I mean, I don't know how to solve this. I don't know how to, you can't change the primary dates and make them, put them in August, so you have a couple of months before the election. Now, when is the primary? It is kind of August. right?
August.
It's August. A little bit earlier. By the time it's over, you've spent all the money. And now you've got to go up against the Republican incumbent who's, just gonna beat you. Hopefully not. We will have to, kiss, make up quickly. As Michael started the meeting off with, we have to back the winner all the way.
All the way.
And fast.
With vigor.
Anyway, that's enough for me.
Go ahead.
I think
Sorry.
Ellen had her hand up again.
I have my
No,
hand up.
Risa,
Risa.
raise it first and then Ellen. That's the order on the thing.
As the senior caucus chair, I am totally outraged at the conference that DeSantis had the other day about the third-degree felony for harvesting ballots. That was a direct hit on seniors. Who else needs their ballots picked up but seniors? We said nothing. We said nothing. We let that pass also. There was no response in the Palm Beach Post. There was nothing from us. That is perfect. There are zillions of seniors in this state. He's going after you, we need to say. And we said nothing. And I wrote Terry, and Terry told me we would. Terry, you told me you were going to do something. I've never seen anything come out. So have we done something? Has the
Yes.
state done anything?
They did, both the state and we did. I will forward it to you later, but of course, it wasn't published. So,
Yeah.
Well, then we needed to
Which
get
is
it out
why
another way.
maybe we need to appoint, not me, because I don't do video.
All these
But
responses have
somebody,
to come
maybe, I
out
don't know.
promptly.
Somebody
We have to flood the papers.
That's right.
If there was one letter published, I've been fairly successful, but when I don't know if it's because there were 15 or 20 or 30 other letters saying the same thing and they liked the way I said it, but if the way to get something published is to have a lot of people write on the same subject. And we don't do that, I don't
And we
think.
need to do that too.
Don't you
If
think
I
having an
may,
election
if I
crime?
may again, if I may on that, also we just received an email, I think days ago, or excuse me, about letters to the editor.
Yeah.
And, samples. And that's exactly what could be done. And perhaps it would be wonderful if the senior caucus would all do letters to the editor on that topic. That would be a perfect example of how that could be successfully utilized. That's a wonderful point.
I already sent out an email asking, but I think it was beyond the senior caucus. It was everything that he said that day. An election crime office, how dare he say something like that and us not react to it? We let this man get away with murder. He is an outrageous person with outrageous policies.
He's
And
barely sane.
I know that, but
barely
it's
sane.
not out there. Steve,
That doesn't matter.
about the NPAs, I sent you a message. If we could just get a whole list of things that DeSantis did that hurts people who live in Florida and just get it to them, just NPAs who show that they're more on the liberal side. This is what this governor does, and we want you to know it. But I feel like I'm in the North County and can never win because we don't have enough Democrats. We need NPAs. We have never won except with Patrick Murphy. I think that we need to further have a discussion about what you said on the NPAs. So.
Okay.
Ellen? Ellen, yeah.
Yeah, so teacher, pretty disappointed in, the Palm Beach County, canceling the mask mandate. I just wanted to mention, I believe I heard today that Alachua County was the, final county to give the opt-out on the mask mandate. And Texas got a positive ruling, but in Florida, every school board caved to DeSantis. And because, probably because he owns the courts. So I'm not sure what, I think the Texas ruling was great for them, but, as of right now, not one school board in the state is willing to stand up to him anymore.
I hear what you're saying, but it wasn't, the only reason why I brought it up is because it's a federal ruling. It was out of the federal district at the 5th district. It was a federal ruling and should hold throughout the country.
Well, I would love to see it because I'm still masking and I'm worried about the numbers after Thanksgiving. Thank you.
And
I like to return to something Mindy said before about the Affordable Care Act, because while it was happening, I remember the Blue Dogs in the Senate. I personally wrote to the 8 of them that prevented a public option from going into the Affordable Care Act. Max Baucus, who now favors single payer, he said at the beginning, single payers off the table. Nurses and doctors got arrested protesting at a hearing that he held. And single payer was never going to be part of that bill. But if it was a bargaining chip that they could have traded at the last minute for the public option. The point is that when you said that it was some time before the public came to appreciate the bill, all of the early polls that found, a majority were opposed to it. When you drilled down into the bill, it was because 25% of them said it didn't go far enough. Right now, the infrastructure bill, I see on the FDP Facebook party leaders Facebook group, people pointing out that the infrastructure bill, the bipartisan bill, has public-private partnerships, where private entities are being given control of part of the infrastructure, whether it's bridges or toll roads, and they're going to be able to raise the tolls the way they did in Chicago, the way they did in Indiana, where it's like 3 times as expensive as it used to be to cross the state on Interstate 80. That's not good, but your glass half full. It's 3/4 full. It's 7/8 full. It's a lousy part of the bill. But, it was something that had to get in there in order to get the bill passed. So instead of people, wanting to show how smart they are or how, plugged in they are and complaining about this, we should be doing, we should be listing all of the good things in the bill. It's the same thing with the Build Back Better. There are the stuff that Manchin had removed from the bill. It's awful, but still, would any of us say that we should not pass it because the climate change provisions have been stripped out? We need to celebrate what is accomplished, and that's what Republicans do. They get 100% behind it, and we form our circular firing squads and complain about it.
Steve.
We talk a lot, it seems, about issues. And everybody here today is talking about issues, about the Build Back Better, about infrastructure, about all different types of issues. Which one of those issues do you think is motivating the 30 or 40% of people, Republicans, who are sticking with Donald Trump? Not
The one that the Democrats have voted for.
the one.
Those are the things those are the ones they don't like, the ones that the Democrats voted for. See, we lose sight of the picture.
Let me finish what I'm saying. I hear what you're saying, but let me finish what I'm saying. The vast majority of the voting public does not vote on issues. They vote on emotion.
Emotion. Yeah,
And
of course.
the big emotion that is holding people to Trump is an almost religious fervor. I love this guy, and anything he does is right with me. And no matter what you say about real life, it doesn't matter. That's the way we have to deliver our message to the people of Florida. We have to get them emotionally involved. We have to give them giving a damn about where the Democrats are elected. That's the key. It's not an easy thing to do, and it isn't a simple thing to do either. It isn't this case of simply saying, well, all we got to do is reach the non-voters and the voters. That's not a strategy. We need a strategy that will reach them emotionally. That's what I do at all the campaigns I work on, and we win. And I'm telling you, that's the way to do it. I've read books on the subject. It really is true.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, the thing that they're talking about most now is gas prices. Gas prices are up. It's
They'll talk
Biden's
about
fault.
anything so long as they don't have to talk about their Republicans who voted no on the way to make them money.
Corinne.
I agree with you.
And if you look at inflation, you'll see that gas prices are cheaper now than they were in the 70s.
Corinne.
Oh, come on.
What an awful time that was.
Yeah, I didn't have my hand up,
Oh,
but I'm enjoying this. This is a very good discussion.
then we're lowering your hand. There are no more hands up. Free for
Really?
all. No.
I'll put an elbow up. How's that?
Soon as.
No, it's okay if you don't put any more hands up.
No, I just have a comment to make. I attended, I like Mike Steele, Michael Steele, who is sort of sometimes show up MSNBC, and he is a still Republican, I think.
He is still a Republican.
Lincoln Project.
But he supports the
I like him a
Democratic
lot.
agenda.
Yeah, so anyhow, he came to Forum Club luncheon meeting the other day, spoke up. And he said he voted for Joe Biden, not for his policy, but because of the current status of our democratic government. Okay. Then someone asked him, how do you think our president is doing? He said he was disappointed. You know why? He said, second day of Joe Biden's inauguration, he closed the pipeline, and therefore we are having this rising high cost gasoline cost. I don't know whether that's true or not. That's what he said to the crowd of Republican, Democratic people who attended that luncheon the other day. Just comment.
Yes, but he also said that even though he doesn't agree with any of the policies, he still will vote for Joe Biden every time.
That's right.
That's what he said. So, anyway, I want to say thank you, Michael, which I can't find you. Thank you, Michael, for inviting me. They have my phone number, and y'all have a very happy rest of what is this, Veterans Day?
Yeah.
And your family at Thanksgiving, because they'll all be vaccinated. Yay.
Yeah, and that's something that Biden did that we need to be talking about, the amount of people vaccinated. It would be a lot more, but for people like DeSantis and other Republican governors. But
and Aaron Rodgers.
Well, so Mike, if and I don't expect anybody to go out and touting this as a talking point, because actually, as passionate as we are about it and as real life it is, nonetheless, COVID is really proving to be no better than a tertiary issue in terms of, its leverage on voters. But you should know this anyway. And that is this, that toward the end of 2020, epidemiological studies had predicted that if nothing else changed, we remained on the same course we were on. And that's with now vaccines are beginning to become available, right? But if we stayed on the same course that was prescribed under the previous administration, that by the end of 2021, between 1.5 and 2 million Americans would be dead from COVID. There are to date, it's somewhere around 754,000, I believe. So it is not unreasonable at all to go back to that epidemiological study and say that through Joe Biden's leadership, we have saved easily 700,000 to 800,000 American lives. That's real, folks. That's absolutely real. 700,000 to 800,000 Americans will be alive on New Year's Eve who might not otherwise have been if not for President Joe Biden.
And I also would say I heard something very interesting today because they're dealing with a surge there, California to Colorado. And what they found, so all of you pay attention, if you haven't gotten your 1, 2, 3rd shot and you're over 65, they're saying that that's a large percentage of the people who are being hospitalized. So, the 3 or 4 of you here who are over 65, please make sure that you get vaccinated before you bring your family over for Thanksgiving. That's all I can say.
Good advice.
And I do have to say, by the way, that I went to the South County to get tested because on Halloween I'd been exposed to somebody who turned out to be COVID positive. It is just a delight going through that place. It took me like 2 minutes.
Yep,
And like
been there
an hour
too.
later, the result, well, you had to go through hoops to get the result. You had to join some weird thing, but I think it was a cult. But it is amazing how fast you're just in and out of that. You don't even get out of the car.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, you can go on the Publix website. If you want to go to Publix or Walgreens and make an appointment, which I did to get the 3rd COVID because, I'm barely over 65. And, I had to wait 5 minutes at Publix. They did the COVID over here and the flu over here. They said, have a seat, and in 20 minutes, I was out the door. So
my doctor advised me not to do that.
Mine too.
I did
Not
it
to do them
Costco.
together.
I got a hot dog too.
David.
Okay. Well, I think that Mindy, again, thanks so much.
Yes, you're
Terry,
welcome,
thanks
Michael.
for dropping in. Good luck to Rick and Hassan. And I don't know what we'll be doing next month. I think one of the themes is going to be, and I think what we should be doing every month is talking about what we can be doing to get rid of DeSantis and Rubio. So, look forward to seeing everyone next
It might be
month.
a good idea. It might be a good idea to bring in somebody who can talk about GOTV programs, telephoning and getting people to vote, identifying your support and so forth. That's a very successful.
Wait, it's a little bit early. It's a little bit early for the get out the vote activity.
Oh, no, I'm talking about learning about it, not doing it.
Oh,
learning
okay.
about it.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, thank you all.
Hey, Steve, is Sharon there?
Yeah, she's here.
Tell her I said hi. Hi, Steve. Hi, Sharon.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Del Rey. I'm going to say
Okay.
good night.
All right.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Good night.
Good night.
David, shut us down.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.